What's up, everyone? We're not gonna beat around the bush in this video. We're just gonna get right into it. In this video, I'm gonna be talking to you about JPEG versus RAW. Which one should you choose? I'm gonna do something a little different. I'm gonna add in a poll right now just to see what your guys' feelings are between JPEG and RAW before I get into all the details about it. And I'll put another poll at the end of the video. Hopefully, I don't know if I can do that yet, but I'm gonna put another poll at the end of the video and see if your mind changed about whether you wanna use JPEG or RAW. Now, in photography, JPEG and RAW are two file formats that your camera can store photos as. You've all probably heard of JPEG, and RAW is just another file format that your camera can save your photos. I know I kind of just said that, but I feel like it needed a bit more explanation. Now, both of these filing formats has its advantages and disadvantages, and I'm gonna go over both for both formats. And hopefully that'll help you have a better idea of which one you wanna choose when you're using your camera. Now, the reason you've probably heard of JPEG before is because it's the standard filing format for digital photography. JPEG is typically the default filing format that your camera is going to be set to when you first get your camera. And if you're somebody that is just picking up a camera for the first time, you're more than likely going to start shooting in JPEG, mostly because you don't know any better. I can tell you the reason that when I started photography, I started using JPEG was because I didn't know any better. I had no idea what RAW was. I had never even heard of RAW before, and it was just something that was confusing at first. So when I first picked up my Canon EOS R, I just assumed JPEG was the way all photos went. And because a lot of beginners don't know any better when it comes to JPEG and RAW, I feel like it's best to start with the advantages and disadvantages of the JPEG file format. Alright, so advantages of JPEG. Why is it called JPEG? Literally, I have no idea. I'm not going to go into any kind of research for that. I don't think that's something that's really important anyway, as long as you know the difference between JPEG and RAW. You don't need to know exactly what this stands for. So when you're shooting in JPEG, the images that you capture are going to be completely processed in your camera. So what exactly does this mean? It means that a lot of settings like white balance, sharpening, and tone curve are going to be applied to your photo by your camera. And because of this, you're not going to really have to spend any time processing the images yourself, which could save you a ton of time in the future. So if you're somebody that's practically picking up a camera for the first time, then using JPEG could really be a lifesaver. Mostly because when you're using JPEG, the images are going to come out of your camera looking a little better than they would if you were shooting in RAW. This is actually probably going to allow you to focus more on just taking the picture rather than having to take a decent picture and having to edit it much later down the road. Another advantage to using JPEGs is that they are much smaller than RAW files. The file size of a JPEG is almost always half that of a RAW file. JPEGs are already compressed files, so if you plan on taking a ton of photos and you're limited on your storage space, then JPEG might have to be the option for you. And nothing sucks more than having to try and get photos but running out of space, so you have to go back and delete photos, and really you might not want to delete any of those photos, and it's just a vicious cycle of trying to pick photos that you want to keep and ones that you want to get rid of, but you don't want to get rid of anything, so it's just a terrible situation. One last advantage of JPEG that I feel is its biggest advantage is that they are easily shareable files. Because everything is processed in your camera already, they are immediately ready to just be thrown out into the world. Again, you won't have to spend any time trying to make your picture more perfect by trying to process things in the editing process. That didn't make any sense, but hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say. Now to the disadvantages of JPEG. With all the convenience of JPEG, it's bound to have some sort of drawbacks. One of these drawbacks is the loss of detail. If you're somebody that's a beginner, you're probably not going to notice much loss of detail in your images. But when you're shooting images that are supposed to be highly detailed or close-up shots, then you want to make sure you have as much detail as possible. Now, some people are going to find this loss in detail slightly off-putting, and this could really turn people off to the JPEG format altogether. Another major huge disadvantage of JPEG is that they lack color detail. All of these files have a limited range of the colors that they can actually display. JPEG files are 8-bit files, which really limits them to what they can show you. Now, your camera itself can actually capture almost an endless number of colors, but because you're in a JPEG format, a lot of these colors are just going to get tossed out the window because JPEG just can't support all of these colors. Having a lower dynamic range is going to be another downside to using the JPEG format. And this basically means that if you have any overexposed or underexposed areas in your photos, you're not going to be able to reprocess them because the image is already processed in your camera. At this point in the video, I'm going to see if I can put another poll up here, and I'm going to see how you feel about JPEG. Do you feel more favorably about JPEG or less favorably about JPEG now? Go ahead, answer the little poll. I'll wait. I'll be patient. Got it? Alright, good. Now moving on to RAW. So advantages of the RAW file format. For starters, RAW files are uncompressed, which means they have much more information than JPEG files. And because of this uncompressed file format, every time you hear one of those noises, it's a car driving by. So for some reason, a shit ton of people are out driving. Actually, you know, they shouldn't be driving anyway. Why are these people home? Yeah, I know I'm outside, but damn, like, I'm at least within walking distance of where I'm living. Anyways, because you have an uncompressed file, you're gonna have a lot more information. And because you have a lot more information, you're more than likely not gonna miss out on any type of details that you wanna have in your shot. You're gonna be able to process the image exactly how you want so you can have the exact look that you wanna get out of your photos. Now when it comes to colors, JPEG is something that can't even compare to RAW. Now, how many more colors can RAW actually give you than JPEG? You're able to have thousands and thousands of more possible colors with RAW than you are with JPEG. So when you're shooting with RAW, you're more than likely never gonna miss out on any type of color that you wanna have in your photo. And trust me, the more advanced you get with your camera, the more you're not gonna wanna miss out on any of these color details or details in general of your shots. And unlike JPEG, RAW has a much higher dynamic range. And because of this higher dynamic range, if you have any overexposed or underexposed areas in your images, you're more than likely gonna be able to fix those in the post-processing, which is just another way to say editing your photos. And I kind of mentioned this a few seconds ago, but when you have a RAW file, you're able to get the exact photo you want. You're able to edit it exactly how you need it to be edited. Whatever editing software you use, you're gonna be able to edit your photos to your liking. Now personally, I love to use Adobe Lightroom when I'm editing my photos, and I actually highly recommend that everybody use Adobe Lightroom when they're editing their photos. And if you want to check that out, I'll put a link to it below. You can adjust nearly anything you want to adjust in this software. Want to change your exposure? Easy. Change that saturation? Done. Bump up in texture? You got it. Increase the clarity? Effortless. Literally whatever you want to change, you can do it. The tools that you can use in your editing software are going to be much better than those tools that are used in your camera when you're in a JPEG format. Another good thing to point out about the RAW file format is that when you're editing your photos, you're going to always be able to go back to that RAW file. So when you save a RAW file in Lightroom, it's more than likely going to be saved as a JPEG. So if you ever want to go back and edit that photo a completely different way, you're going to be able to do that and start from the original point that you did with that RAW photo. Moving on to the disadvantages of RAW. Now I know RAW seems to be completely amazing, but of course, as with anything, there's always going to be some sort of drawbacks. Because RAW files are uncompressed, they're going to be much larger files than JPEG files. As I said before, JPEG is usually half the size of a RAW file, which means RAW is typically double the size of a JPEG file. Larger files means that you're going to be taking up much more space on your memory cards, and if you have a very limited supply of memory cards, then you could be screwed in the long run. Again, trust me, you don't want to be in the middle of a shoot and run out of storage for your pictures, because then what are you going to do? Your only option is to go back and try and delete some photos or just end your shoot where you are right then. And if you're forced to end your shoot early, you're more than likely going to miss out on a few great photos that you could potentially have. So just be smart, buy a shit ton of memory cards, and you won't have anything to worry about in the near future. And even though with RAW files you get the chance to edit your photos exactly how you want, this could be something that you really don't want to do in the end. Editing is something that takes time, and we all get to a point where we feel like we're just not going to have enough time to do something. I personally think that there's always time to do what you want to do, you just have to make the time for it, but not everyone thinks that way, so I understand if you feel like you won't have enough time to edit certain photos. Another drawback of RAW files is that you need to make sure you have software that is compatible with the RAW file itself. So for example, I use the Canon EOS R and the Canon EOS RP, so when I'm done shooting RAW with those cameras, I need to make sure that I have editing software that is compatible with those files. And obviously you know that I use Lightroom by now, and Lightroom is more than compatible with the Canon RAW files. So when it comes to RAW versus JPEG, the option is always up to you. So because I said I would put up another poll, hopefully I can. I'm still kind of new to this YouTube thing. I'm gonna put up a poll here, and you're gonna let me know if you still think that RAW or JPEG is the choice for you. And this is something that I'm very interested to look at, because I'm somebody that is a huge advocate for RAW no matter what, and yeah, I just want to see if everyone else is on that same page. And if for some reason the idea I have for these polls doesn't work out, leave a comment below. Tell me if you use RAW or JPEG, and please, I would love to know exactly why you chose to use that format. And hopefully if you're somebody that's been stuck in between RAW and JPEG, hopefully this video helped you choose which one you would rather stick with. Anyway, whatever you choose to use, be sure to use your camera to the best of your ability and capture everything you can around you. And before I go, I gotta put the plug in. Follow me on Instagram at DareToCapture. You're gonna like what you see out there because, hey, I'm always learning new things on there, and it's just a fun, good time. So follow me over there. Oh, another thing, if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. But yeah, I don't have anything else to say. So on that note, I will catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy. Peace.